Hello, everybody. Jason Green. Super stoked to be with you again today on this Friday, the 22nd of October. At least it's Friday down here in Australia and New Zealand. And thank you for joining me from wherever you are coming in and tuning in from anywhere in the world. Had some serious challenges with my internet connectivity today, both Wi-Fi as well as 4G. So anyways, hopefully this is, I'm streaming it via my phone. So hopefully this, 4G via my phone. So hopefully this connectivity is good enough and stable enough to allow us to complete the broadcast today. And as per usual, I will come back to your comments, your questions, etc. on the live stream, whether that be on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. I'll come back to those at the end of the broadcast after I've run through the week's news and my commentary. And again, super stoked to be with you here today. And again, I'm coming to you with a, in here today, we've got some Long Branch bourbon in my Karna, insulated Karna merch cup today. So, and we've got some Klarna news to refer back to. So thank you again, Klarna, for the handy drinking cup. That is amazing. So again, it is awesome to be with you today. It has been a very, very busy week in the e-commerce world, as it always is. And if you follow my podcast, if you follow my TikTok, if you follow my LinkedIn, if you follow all of the other platforms that I've released content on, you'll know that it's been a very, very packed week when it comes to e-commerce news. And there's a lot going on, and it is only accelerating. And the reason why it's accelerating is we're heading into, a time where we're very close to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Christmas, New Year, etc. And as a result of that, demand is skyrocketing for e-commerce. When you combine that with ongoing lockdowns, particularly here in ANZ, and then obviously rolling stay-in-place orders around the world and in various other countries where they're doing different versions of lockdown, that continues to put a rocket underneath e-commerce. And as a result of that, global supply chains continue to be under strain. And, before I jump into the news, one of the things I want to talk about is the global supply chains. What I'm hearing from the channel, what I'm hearing from the market is that it is absolutely going to be a really, really challenging Christmas and holiday season for most retailers. Many of them are simply not going to have enough product to meet all of the demand that they already have, let alone Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and Christmas demand. As a result of that, if you're looking at doing your Christmas shopping, my recommendation is do that early, do it often, and make sure that you try to get everything that you could possibly want now before the holiday proper starts to kick in about a month's time. Because many, many retailers are already reporting that not only are costs going to go through the roof, but at any price, there's many, many products that are simply not going to be available. Now, I don't know how much of this is going to pan out exactly as people are saying, and whether they're just trying to scare people into buying early, but literally from it, almost everything that I'm hearing from the channel and that I'm hearing from retailers, almost everybody is saying the same thing. They're screaming about stock. They're screaming about delays of shipping, particularly sea freight shipping internationally. Even international air freight parcels are starting to be dramatically impacted. In fact, the United States Postal Service obviously recently canceled all shipments of all international shipments to Australia and New Zealand, simply because they do not have enough air freight capacity coming to Australia and New Zealand to be able to ship goods to our countries. And the reason for that is our borders are closed. It's as simple as that. So we don't have passenger planes coming into Australia and New Zealand in the numbers that we did pre-pandemic. And for those that don't know, much of the space on those passenger freighters, much of the freight space is taken up with various different contract freight arrangements with the likes of the United States Parcel Service and other carriers. And as a result of those many, many planes every day not coming into Australia and New Zealand, the freight capacity has been dramatically decreased. Obviously, companies like FedEx and UPS and various other carriers, they've got their own dedicated freight liners. But for the other smaller carriers and even the USPS, which contracts with major passenger carrier airlines for much of their shipping into Australia and New Zealand, with those passenger numbers being about, I think the latest estimate was about 10% of the normal numbers coming home. As a result of that, there just is not the air freight capacity to get products into Australia and New Zealand. And as a result of that, that's putting additional pressure on sea freight. And sea freight is already having a massive challenge around a shortage of shipping containers themselves. So the cost of shipping containers and the availability of space on sea freight ships is at an absolute premium. So what we're seeing is costs blow out from 4 to 5 to 6 times their normal cost for a sea freight container, and also the timelines pushing out 4, 8, and in some cases 12 weeks. So in general, we're seeing supply chains come under increasing pressure as COVID continues to bite. So let's just see how this plays out. But my advice to you is, if you're a consumer and you're looking at buying some Christmas gifts for your family and friends, get onto that sooner rather than later, because it is just going to become increasingly hard to get the stuff that you want in time for Christmas. Lee and Paul, thanks very much for joining me today. It's awesome to see you guys here. And let's go ahead and let's get into the news of the week. Now, first piece of news, which was a surprise to me, hadn't really come across my radar until I read this article, and that is that Walmart is gaining on Amazon and e-commerce. And this is an article from Forbes, and they were quoting a report from Jungle Scout, which said that Amazon is expected to end 2021 with more than $468 billion in global e-commerce sales. Walmart will have $75 billion in global sales. Now, whilst that sounds like a massive gap, $75 to $468 billion, what the data is telling us is Walmart is growing much faster online than Amazon is when it comes to e-commerce. And in fact, it's growing more than 5 times faster. And what the report from Jungle Scout showed is that if these rates hold true over the next 4 years, Walmart's e-commerce will overtake Amazon's retail sales in just 4 years. Now, that's just a staggering statistic when we think about that on its own. But apparently, the biggest reason why consumers shop on Walmart is price, followed by familiarity with products and proximity to Walmart physical stores for easy pickup and returns, with 31% favoring Walmart because of their physical store availability. Now, stores are a strength of Walmart, and as per the report, what it says is that Walmart has over 5,000 physical stores in the United States, compared to Amazon, which has under 600, with over 80% of those being Whole Foods markets. So obviously, when we look at Walmart, it's got just a small smattering of retail stores compared to Walmart. Now, what they also call out is that the Walmart stores are positioned very, very close to major consumer centers. In an average year, over 95% of U.S. consumers make a purchase from Walmart, and over 90% of American consumers live within 10 miles of a Walmart store. Now, that is just a staggering statistic. When you think of all the remote, far-flung rural areas in the United States, for over 90% of Americans to live within 10 miles of a Walmart store, wow, that is a stunning statistic. Now, Walmart, they called out the fact that Walmart's strength lies in its physical stores, because that represents a massive opportunity versus Amazon, when you consider the fact that consumers who shop on Amazon and don't shop on Walmart.com, 50% shop in physical Walmart stores. So in other words, 57% of Amazon's customers who do not shop with Walmart online do shop in Walmart stores. Now, that means that a big push by Walmart in its stores to attract consumers to its online business could accelerate Walmart's e-commerce at Amazon's expense. So some amazing statistics coming out of this research report by Jungle Scout. And let's just see, I am a big fan of competition. I do not like to look out at an e-commerce world where Amazon owns the world. I don't think that's good for anybody. I don't think it's good for mom and pop shops. I don't think it's good for other big retailers. I don't think it's good for regional retailers. I just do not believe that Amazon owning 100% of the world's e-commerce trade is a good thing for anyone. Once a monopoly sets in, they have monopoly pricing power. They have all sorts of other monopoly powers other than just pricing power. And it really ultimately ends up in a very bad situation for consumers. So for me, this report actually not only makes a heck of a lot of sense, but it actually warms my heart, because I think Amazon needs a strong competitor, at least 1 or 2 or 3 really strong competitors, and Walmart looks to be that competitor. And we know from recent reports from Walmart that they are doubling down on their marketplace model. They are doubling down on Walmart Marketplace. They've doubled the number of merchants listing in their marketplace over the last 12 months. So we know that Walmart is not only going hammer and tongs at its own physical business and its own online business, but they're looking to compete more broadly with Amazon through its own marketplace as well. And I think the latest statistic was there was nearly 100,000 retailers on Walmart's marketplace. So clearly that's a small fraction of retailers selling through Amazon. However, anything that Walmart grows around e-commerce at the expense of Amazon is ultimately going to create a more competitive landscape. And I think that is a win for the consumer. Now, this next piece of news is really a bit of scuttlebutt, but it's been reported by numerous news outlets, so I have reason to believe that it's legit. And this is the news that PayPal is in negotiations for a $45 billion bid for Pinterest. Now, this has been reported by Adweek and Reuters and a whole bunch of other news outlets. And what they've said is that Pinterest, while Pinterest was hosting its second annual Creators Festival on Wednesday of this week, something much bigger was apparently afoot behind the scenes. Payment giant PayPal is reportedly in advanced discussions to acquire the visual search and social commerce platform. Neither company has commented on the news reports. However, Ed Hammond and Liana Baker of Bloomberg were the first to break the news on these talks. And apparently the published reports peg the offer at roughly $70 per share, which is how we arrive at $45 billion offer. And if the transaction is finalized with those terms, some of the other things that Bloomberg called out is that it would mark the largest of consumer internet sector takeovers over the past decade, besting Salesforce's $27.7 billion acquisition of Slack last December and Microsoft's takeover of LinkedIn for $26.2 billion in June of 2016. So nearly double those values. Massive, massive dollars for Pinterest. Forrester VP and Research Director Mike Proul said in an email, this is PayPal's play to parlay into the exploding social commerce business. Every social media platform is doubling down right now on native in-application commerce experiences and recognizing that they're a fertile territory in the next era of digital commerce, being the PayPal interest in their business. Now, they also called out a couple of other milestones in Pinterest's evolution from a pure social platform to more of a social commerce platform. They called out the fact that Pinterest social commerce pushback began in earnest with its debut of visual search tools, Lens, Shop the Look, and Instant Ideas in February of 2017. The next big step came in October of 2018 when its Bible pin format was replaced with product pins, bringing shoppers directly to checkout pages on retailer sites and enabling them to complete purchases in a few clicks. Now, what they don't call out here, which I would like to call out, is that there's still no in-app purchasing within Pinterest. There's still, for the most part, no in-app purchasing inside the Facebook collection of apps, apart from Instagram shops and Facebook shops in North America and a couple of other countries in the world. And there still is no in-app purchasing inside of TikTok. So versus China, when we compare social commerce functionality in the West versus China, we are babies. We are absolutely very early days. It is very nascent. We are very immature. When you look at social commerce within China, almost every single app and super app within China offers in-app purchasing with zero friction, complete walletization of payment methods, complete walletization of shipping and payment addresses. Basically, everything you need to provide in-app commerce where there is almost zero friction between see, like, buy, and ship. Pretty much in all of the Western social media apps, there is tremendous amount of friction, mostly redirects to e-commerce websites to complete a transaction. And I expect this to change pretty radically over the next 1 to 3 years. And we can't wait for that day, because at the moment, there is a tremendous, there's just almost innumerable friction points within social commerce today in the West. And China is absolutely kicking our ass in that regard. And of course, there are different jurisdictions in the West. There are different countries. There are different tax rates. There are different rules around what influencers can do and how they have to talk about their influence and how they have to be transparent about advertising and marketing and the like. But Western apps are just going to have to sort their shit out when it comes to in-app purchasing, because at the moment we got in-app shopping for the most part, but not in-app purchasing. So that is the end of my rant about Western social commerce being so behind the 8 ball versus Asia in the main. Now, next piece of news: Richmond mulls the sale of Yoox Net-a-Porter, and this is an announcement and a report from Retail Gazette out of the UK. Richmond is considering spinning off its Yoox Net-a-Porter wine app brand, despite investing millions into the online fashion retailer. The Swiss-based luxury group, which bought control of YNAP in 2018, has decided that the e-commerce platform has lost appeal to rival Farfetch. And they've been competitors with Farfetch quite a long time. It says Richmond's priority is to remove YNAP from its brands, either by selling all or part of the business. Richmond has hinted to analysts that it no longer regards YNAP as a strategic asset. Ouch. That hurts. In March, Richmond shares rose after it was approached by French luxury goods group Kering for a potential merger in July. Richmond had rejected the informal offer back in January. A cash and shares proposal to merge had been made directly by Kering chief executive Francois Henry Pinault to Richmond chairman and controlling shareholder Johan Rupert. So let's see how this one plays out. Obviously, Yoox Net-a-Porter, the darling of online fashion marketplaces for years, looks like it has fallen out of favor with its VC owner, Richmond. And let's see how this one plays out and how much they ultimately fetch for the brand that they've invested millions and millions of dollars into. Now, this next one, even though this report comes out of the UK, again, out of Charged Retail Tech News, this, I think, is going to have a spillover effect into ANZ, whether we like it or not. Owen, thanks again very much. Great to see you here today with me. Now, what this report says is that the BNPL sector is subject to government regulation by the end of October, insiders warn. Now, this is specific to the UK. Don't forget this. However, again, I think this is going to have a contagion effect everywhere else in the world. The buy now, pay later market will be subject to government regulation by the end of October, according to industry sources. BNPL products have grown increasingly popular in the UK, with the industry estimated to have financed £3 billion in customer transactions across the country. The companies offering BNPL services have so far operated with virtually no regulation at all. And it is exactly the same in ANZ. They are not considered credit-based companies, so they do not fall under the same level of regulation and scrutiny as credit card companies and banks. And so they've operated almost with a hands-free, light touch, no touch environment. And they've been able to grow with pretty much zero oversight over the last couple of years. And therefore, we have seen the explosive growth without this oversight, without this regulation, without the compliance costs, and without the growth constraints that traditional credit products have across the industry. We have seen market makers like Afterpay, like Klarna, like Zip, and all of the other many competitors. We've seen them absolutely stick it to the market in terms of their charges, their fees, their percentages that they charge as effectively gateway providers. We've seen them rule the roost, and we've seen them pretty much have free reign as to what they charge to the industry, what they charge to merchants, and how they engage with customers. It looks like the tide is slowly starting to turn, starting with the UK. Let's see how this plays out. According to the report, the new FCA regulations, it intends to protect BNPL consumers from harm or exploitation by credit firms. And they call out clearly that they consider BNPL absolutely credit providers, which I absolutely agree. I mean, obviously, if you give someone timed payment with penalties if they don't repay, I mean, that is credit. It is. You can't call it anything else. It would be disingenuous to call it anything else. Now, BDO anticipates that the regulation will include affordability assessments for product applications, making sure vulnerable customers are treated fairly. BNPL lenders will also have to comply with the provision of forbearance, offering the customer some leniency with pausing or reducing repayments. And when a sector of consumer finance grows as fast and as far as BNPL, it is almost inevitable that the FCA is going to have to regulate it. BDO financial services partner Richard Barnwell told City AM, quoted in Charged Retail. So I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that one of the reasons why Afterpay sold themselves was because they saw the writing on the wall when it comes to regulation, and they needed to come under the umbrella of a proper financial services firm. And you know, the heyday of buy now, pay later, the wild west of BNPL, I think, is coming to a rapid end. Let's see how this plays out in the UK, and let's see how this precedent starts to affect other sectors and other merchants and other infrastructure, credit infrastructure providers all around the world. Now, the next piece of news comes from Inside Retail, and it is that Australia Post invests in South Australia ahead of the Christmas rush. Now, before I even get into the details of this announcement, obviously we have to look back at what has been happening with Australia Post over the last 12 to 18 months. They have come under absolutely phenomenal pressure with the increased level of lockdowns, the length and the duration and the severity of lockdowns inside of Australia. When we look at New South Wales, when we look at Victoria, and to a lesser degree, Western Australia and other parts of Australia, other states of Australia, as these major demographic areas within Australia continue to be locked down, mercilessly, what we've seen is that obviously e-commerce continues to grow explosively. Australia Post is really struggling. We've seen 2 times in the last 3 months that Australia Post has paused pickups for between 3 and 6 days. They've paused pickups from online retail merchants because they cannot keep up with the demand. So obviously Aussie Post is investing in some South Australian infrastructure here. The report says that Australia Post has opened its first dedicated parcel facility in SA in a bid to improve its business in the state, now being able to process 8,000 parcels per hour locally. Located in Adelaide, the 15,000 square meter distribution center is the home of the business's first machine able to simultaneously sort small and large parcels, which should go some way to improving productivity at that location. Australia Post head of South Australian delivery operations, Rob Clothier, said that the new facility will help to manage the surge in online shopping as a result of the pandemic, with September's parcel volumes up 7% in South Australia compared to just a year earlier. We had more than 344,000 South Australian households shopping online in September alone, and we know how busy the festive season can be after last year's record-breaking Christmas. This new facility will help us get through those high volumes of parcels moving quickly and to people's doors faster than ever before. The launch comes as the ARA predicts this holiday season will be similar in volume to last year's, which was Australia Post's busiest period in its history. The ARA Roy Morgan 2021 pre-Christmas retail sales prediction said Australians are likely to spend around $58.8 billion overall this Christmas. There's a lot of Christmas cheer in these numbers, with the overall trend looking positive, said ARA Chief Executive Paul Zara. So, yeah, absolutely. Do I think that Australia Post is able and ready and even willing to keep up with e-commerce demand if it stays at these elevated levels? Well, time will tell, but I think it's going to be a big, big challenge for them. They are going to have to continue to invest, as Amazon has invested hundreds of millions of dollars, particularly in the New South Wales and Sydney areas. They are about ready to open their largest automated warehouse in the whole of the APAC region. And I think if Australia Post doesn't want to let its retailers down, if it wants to continue to be part of the essential infrastructure of e-commerce in Australia, they're going to have to continue to make these scale of investments. And this is going to be an indefinite investment window, considering that Amazon is coming at them hammer and tongs. Watch this space. Now, then another piece of news coming out of Australia is that super retail suffers lockdown sales slump. And this was a report according to Inside Retail. Pardon me. Super Retail Group has faltered at the starting line of financial year 2022, following a strong year in 2021, with sales across all of its brands falling throughout the first 16 weeks of trade. Pardon me, dry throat there. Hopefully that didn't come in loud and clear. The continued impact of lockdown seems to be to blame, with the group's stable of brands, Supercheap Auto, Rebel, BCF, and Macpac, all suffering slumps. And this is throughout the country over the last few months. Group sales fell by 12% compared to the same period of financial year 2021, with each individual brand experiencing sales slumps, though online sales increased 96% throughout the same period. Now, obviously, those numbers sound amazing. When you hear numbers like online sales increasing 96% throughout the same period, that seems incredible. But when you think about the fact that those online sales came off of a relatively small base. So for most of these brands and most large retail brands that were sub 20% e-commerce of total revenues pre-pandemic, when you look at this increase, sure, it's an incredible increase in their online sales. But as a percentage, it was already a tiny, tiny percentage of their overall business. So these numbers can be deceptive if you don't look at them through the correct lens. And that lens is that these businesses are still trying to adapt to an environment where 80 to 100% of their revenue will have to come through e-commerce channels as their physical retail stores are locked down. And most of these brands are struggling to re-engineer and re-architect their business to ship individual parcels to the door out of their warehouses for every single customer, versus shipping pallets and containers to their physical retail stores, where customers effectively do the logistics by coming to the store and picking up their goods. So obviously, they include in this 96% growth rate, they include the increases in click and collect, they include the increases in ship from store via e-commerce channels. So this number is a little bit murky, but what it does show is that e-commerce is continuing to grow at an increasing and accelerated rate due to lockdowns. And let's just see if we can get 12 to 18 months of post-pandemic, post-lockdown retail sales under our belt. I think we'll have a much clearer picture of the total impact of the pandemic on systemic buying behavior changes. But until then, these numbers are interim numbers. And I think that they're so heavily influenced by lockdowns that these are not clear in terms of how that is going to impact buying behavior long-term. Let's check this out over the next 18 to 24 months. Now, next big piece of news, Klarna partners with Wix to offer e-commerce merchants flexible buy now, pay later payment solutions. Now, as we know, Klarna is one of the global behemoths in the buy now, pay later space. they, like PayPal, are starting to buy not only social media players, retail tech players. They bought Hero. Klarna recently bought Hero. They've also bought other MarTech and AdTech platforms to put underneath their Klarna umbrella of brands so that they can create a one-stop shop for merchant services for their panel of merchants that historically have only used their buy now, pay later services. They have a ready-made market for much more technology. Now, obviously, Wix recognizes this. Wix was late to the e-commerce party. They're a content-focused platform similar to Squarespace, similar to Weebly, similar to many, many other CMS platforms that have tacked on e-commerce as almost an afterthought, but integrating it more deeply into those platforms. And obviously, they've been late to the party to add buy now, pay later services to their platforms for their e-commerce merchants. Klarna recognizes this and is doing deals with some of these smaller e-commerce platform players, and they're obviously kicking things off with Wix. The report says fintech Klarna has partnered with cloud-based website development platform Wix to enable its e-commerce merchants to offer customers flexible and convenient payment options. We know what Klarna is. We know what it brings to the table. It says here, Wix online merchants now have access to Klarna's Pay in 4 and Pay in 3 solutions, which offer their customers interest-free payments over time, while retailers receive full payment up front. And the announcement by Wix and their commentary was, we're thrilled to join the efforts with Klarna to provide Wix e-commerce merchants with more payment solutions that benefit them and their customers. Our research indicates that Wix stores connected to buy now, pay later providers have seen a 25% increase in high ticket transactions, making these items more affordable for customers and boosting merchants' overall growth. Now, this seems, based on that high value statement that they have said, that Wix has said, it feels like the Affirm solution, which is really a BNPL solution targeted very high cart values, much higher than what Klarna supports. Seems like Affirm might be the next cab off the rank to integrate with Wix. But let's just see how this plays out. Now, last couple of pieces of news here is that my At the Coalface prize draw, I have canceled that. I didn't get enough interest in it. I put it out just over a week ago, along with episode 100 being released of the At the Coalface podcast. I put a prize draw link in the announcement on LinkedIn around that. I had some providers and some vendors lined up to give some amazing prizes. I had physical merchandise. I had digital giveaways. I had a whole bunch of stuff lined up, but I just simply did not. I didn't get any entrance into the prize draw. And so what I'll do is I will hang on to those offers being made by various different vendors and partners of mine and friends and partners of the podcast. I will hang on to those and we'll do another draw. Maybe we'll do that at episode 150. Let's just see how it plays out. And definitely we'll do something pretty big at episode 200. And in line with that, episode 101 dropped yesterday. And that episode was talking e-commerce, pick, pack, dispatch, and courier automation with Hawk and Steele, or my friend Hawk, as he's familiarly known in the industry, from Starship It. So if you haven't listened to episode 101, it's an amazing episode. I love Hawk. I love what Starship It is doing. I love how they're democratizing the ease of pick, pack, dispatch, and courier automation for even the smallest of merchants. Really love what they're doing. Really love their technology. Really love how easy it is for brands to implement. And I really love Hawk's take on the logistics industry overall in ANZ. He has some unique insights. Go and listen to the pod if you have not already. I think you'll get a lot out of it. Now, it is 4:32, so we're finishing nearly on time today. So again, thank you, Lee, Paul, Owen. Thank you very much. And really, really appreciate you joining me today. And for all of the other guests, really appreciate you being here. And for all of you that go back and listen in hindsight after this episode is posted, really appreciate it. Look forward to catching up with you guys again next Friday. And we'll chat to you guys again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.